Good morning, it's Dan and Lee in our Sunday class. Hello, Miss Lee.
Morning.
Are you awake and going today?
I'm cold, but I'm awake.
I don't know. Well, today we're going to be talking about the war that Jesus fought. What are you making hands at me for? You can talk.
Oh, because I heard the music real loud. And
Well, today we're going to be talking about the things that Jesus fought. And he had a war too. And I think it's important to realize we live in a war zone. We fight the world, the flesh, and the devil. And
onward, Christian soldiers, marching as to war.
Today we're going to deal with the example that Jesus had of fighting the war with the spies among us. I play this video game, and it has saboteurs, spies that get in among you. And it's such an interesting concept, but, you know, C.S. Lewis wrote a whole book about it. You know remember the book, Lee?
Which one?
You are asleep today. You're supposed to know these things.
Paralandra?
No!
Out of the Silent Planet?
No! Now you made me blank out.
The Great
Screw
Divorce?
Tape Letters.
Oh, Screw Tape Letters.
It's all about the spies
See,
and the
problem with
demons.
C.S. Lewis is he wrote so much about so much
Yeah.
that it's hard to...
Well, Jesus had spies among him, and that's what we're going to study today. So he was being the Christian soldier by exposing the spies.
With the cross of Jesus going on before.
So, Miss Lee, where are we reading today?
Today we are reading in some new verses, and it is Matthew 26, 21 through 25, Mark 14, 18 through 21, Luke 22, 21 through 23, and John 13, 21 through 33.
Now, always remember that when we are fighting the war for the Lord, the world, the flesh, and the devil, that we're not any different than Jesus. He was doing the same thing, except he didn't have the flesh to fight. He was fighting the flesh of others, but he was sinless in the flesh.
When Jesus had said these things, and while they reclined at the table and were eating, he became troubled in spirit and testified, saying, Verily, verily, I say to you that one of you will betray me, one who is eating with me.
Now, verily, verily means what?
This is truly true truth.
Yeah, and see,
This is really important. Pay attention.
This is a great example of, this came about real quickly. So that's the test of a prophet. If he says verily, verily, and you test it in history and it comes true, he's a prophet. And that's why Jesus here is actually confirming that he's a prophet and he is Messiah. And he is God.
So the disciples were exceedingly grieved and looked at one another, wondering of whom he spoke. And they began to ask of one another who of them it might be that would do this, and to say to him one by one, Lord, is it I? And he answered and said to them.
So here's a good example of false guilt. They automatically assume, maybe it's me, you know. They were not confident of themselves, and that really shows the character of these men.
Well, I think too that it was nothing that they wanted to do, and they were afraid that it might be them, and something was going to happen, and they were going to do this evil thing.
Well, it shows the character of these men, that they weren't these great confident people. Once the Holy Spirit came upon them, they went out and changed the world. But here, they're really showing
and tax collectors.
They're kind of insecure. I mean, realize they weren't Donald Trump said, "We're going to make America great again." Well, is it me? Am I the betrayer? I mean, it was just a different kind of thing.
And he answered and said to them, It is one of the 12, one who is dipping with me in the dish.
So he gave them a sign of who it was. But the problem is, they all dipped with him in the dish.
Behold, moreover, the hand of the one betraying me is with me on the table. And the Son of Man indeed is going, as it has been determined, as it is written of him. But woe to that man by whom he is betrayed. It were good for that man had he not been born.
This is a sad, sad thing. This guy made a free won't. I won't follow Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
He had all this revelation. He saw all the miracles. He'd been with Jesus. He heard the word of truth. See, it's not that we have the best arguments. They still have to say, I will follow.
Well, this next one is interesting. Then Judas, the betrayer, answered and said, Rabbi, is it I? He said to him, It is as you have said. So did he not know at that point? Did Judas not know?
I don't know. I don't think it reveals that.
But
it could be. Most saboteurs are deceitful. So my thought is he had already made arrangements and contacts, and he kind of knew he was going to do this.
Was he testing Jesus to see if he knew it was him?
But he was also trying to keep it secret because he was about to get a big payoff.
Yeah.
So he hadn't got the money yet. So it's kind of like all saboteurs. They're kind of shifty and shady. So we don't know. I don't know.
Okay, so let's go on. Now there was reclining close to Jesus' bosom one of his disciples, the one whom Jesus loved.
Which would be John.
Which would be John. So Simon Peter beckoned to him to ask who it might be of whom he spoke. And he, leaning against Jesus' breast, said to him, Lord, who is it? Jesus answered, He it is to whom I shall give the morsel when I have dipped it. And on dipping the morsel, he gave it to Judas Iscariot, son of Simon. And after the morsel, then entered Satan into him.
So he went full blast at this little scheme he probably was already working on.
It was at least in his mind.
Now, and well,
He'd been offered, probably.
I think he knew about the offer.
Yeah.
And the decision had not probably been totally made, but his heart was over there to get the money. He was the guy that took care of the money. He loved money. And so that was his temptation. But he didn't, he was torn probably because of Jesus. We have people in our churches like this.
Well, I was just going to say that. I was thinking that too. You have people that go along and they act like you're their friend, and they act like they're a big deal in the church, and yet their heart is wicked and evil.
We've come across a few of those in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
They pretend they're your buddy, and then suddenly it just shifts. And this is what we're seeing. We're seeing the hidden kingdom here.
Yeah.
Satan entered him. Shows us that demons, in this case, it was Satan himself. Demons have a way of inspiring our wills and empowering our wills. And we can always say no. They can't take over our won't. That's free. We have free won't. But once we make a decision, they can give us power to do evil.
That's where it's so important to set your mind.
Yeah.
You have to set your mind. And that doesn't just mean you just go into la land and think, oh, I'm spiritual. Sometimes it's a real battle of setting your mind. I mean, it's concrete things you face in the day. You have to set your mind.
There's temptations, and when the temptations, your eyes get torn, your face turns.
Yeah.
The flesh, the world, and the devil. There's intellectual temptations. There's physical temptations.
This is a stupid story to go into here, but I'm going to give it to you anyway.
Oh, okay, give me a stupid story.
This week...
I'll cut it out if it's no good.
Okay, this week, I wanted to ride an electric bike we have. I was so afraid. I haven't ridden an electric bike in probably 15, 20 years.
You haven't ever ridden an electric bike?
A two-wheeler.
Okay.
I'm going to say two-wheeler.
That's a little better.
I was afraid. I was really afraid.
Were you really afraid?
Oh, yeah. I don't want to fall down. I'm old enough now that I feel like if I fall down, I'm going to break something. I was afraid. But I set my mind, I can do this. So I started off really, really slow, and I was wobbling, and I kept setting my mind to go forward, to not stop and get off. I wanted to stop and get off because it was scary. Mm-hmm. But I went forward.
You were like a little kid riding a bike for the first time?
It's like a
because I had to go along
training
behind you
wheels.
and make sure you weren't falling
Oh,
over.
it was like a 5-year-old without training wheels.
It was.
But and I still wobbly. I have to
You weren't-
practice more.
Actually,
But-
you weren't wobbly.
Oh, I felt like I was shaking like a leaf in
I
the
know.
wind.
Your imagination took over.
Yeah, so it was all these things I had to. The point is, I had to set my mind in front of me that I could do this. I can move. I can go. And like the second or third time I rode, I was gaining confidence, and I thought, wow, I like this. I can do this.
Mhm.
Now, I'm never going to enter
So
a race. And
what you're
stuff.
saying, fear shouldn't control you.
No,
If you will say no to fear
that's what you have to do.
and set your mind on the things of the Lord or good things.
Good things.
And it's good things to be able to move a little quicker on
Yeah.
a bike, especially
And it gives me such good exercise.
especially
so I know it's
if you
good.
have bad hips like you do, where
Yeah.
you can't walk very well.
Yeah,
It allows you to get exercise that is good for you.
right. So,
So you set your mind on that, and you did it.
yeah.
And as you did it, and that's where faith comes from faith. As you believed you could do it, as you did it, you believed you could do it. Faith comes from faith. You encourage yourself
Yeah,
by acting.
yeah.
And that's why it's very important you don't chew more than you can chew. You don't put a whole clop in your mouth at
Right.
one time. And you just wanted to go a little bit, and I kind of let you. I knew you could do it. But you were careful, and you did a good job.
All
Now
right.
you want to go all the time.
Yeah, except when it's so cold like it is. Okay, so now we're going on. He gave the morsel to Judas Iscariot. Jesus said therefore to him, "What you are doing, do quickly." Now none of those at the table knew why he spoke to him. For some thought that since Judas had the money bag, Jesus was telling him, "Buy the things we need for the feast," or that he should give something to the poor. Immediately, therefore, after receiving the morsel, he went out, and it was night. When he had gone out, Jesus said, "Now has the Son of
Now
Man,"
he's only talking to the 11,
to the 11
the
faithful
men.
men.
And that's the difference in the New Testament. You don't waste a lot of time on everybody.
Yeah,
You teach faithful men who will in turn teach others also.
right.
That's the New Testament.
Yeah.
That comes out of it. 2 Timothy 2:2.
When he had gone out, Jesus said, "Now has the Son of Man been glorified, and God has been glorified in him. If God has been glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself, and will glorify him forthwith. Little children," now he's talking to these grown men,
Mhm.
but he calls them little children.
Well, they're still immature believers.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
And he loves them.
Yeah.
Yeah, he loves them
they're his
as
children.
his children. Little children, yet a little while I am with you. You will
Now, I want to stop there because so many times it talks about becoming as little children. But these guys weren't like children.
they weren't.
They had gone
Yeah.
out, healed the sick, raised the dead.
Yeah.
They'd done all kinds of things. But their faith was little and growing. And that's kind of what we all are. It's not we're to be stupid, because a little child is anxious to know and to grow. That's
they
what
really-
these guys were. Judas was anxious to betray
Mhm.
and to kill.
And a child wants to learn, and he's trusting, and all the things you think of in a child.
And that's
That's
what
what
he's
we're supposed
referring
to
to
do.
here as
Yeah.
little children. Not that they were little.
Little children, yet a little while I am with you. You will seek me, and just as I said to the Jews, where I am going, you cannot come. I now say it also to you.
Well, where was he going that they could not come?
Death on the cross.
Well, he was going to heaven. And they couldn't get there right then.
Well, and he was also going to hell for 3 days, and they
Yeah.
couldn't go with him there.
Yeah,
either.
that's true.
Because
I hadn't thought of that. That's
Yeah.
really good.
They couldn't. They couldn't be the substitution for
Yeah.
man's sins.
And they couldn't
Only
separate
he
their
could do
bodies
that.
and do the things he did
No.
and, overcome death. And they couldn't come into this horrible thing he was about to enter into.
I mean, it seems like a simple sentence, but there's
it's
so
filled.
much there.
It's pregnant
It's pregnant with meaning.
with conceptual ideas.
Yeah, I guess so.
So, anyway, Jesus is now at the point where he's about to go to the cross, and Judas has gone away, and history
out of it.
History is progressive. Remember, we're taking you through the walk through history from the time that Jesus was actually from eternity. In the beginning was the Word.
Yeah.
And into the point where he sends his disciples into the world after the resurrection. So right now, we're in the upper room or Last Supper. And we've just now made the transition to where no longer are there 12, there's 11.
11.
So if you came up to Jesus right then at that time in history and said, how many disciples do you have? He'd have said 11.
Yeah.
See, these things change in different times. And then if you were reporting that as a news reporter, oh, he's got fake news, he's got 12. See, that's later, Paul was added.
Mm-hmm.
But what's interesting is you got to put these things into time, space, history to get a proper view of the facts. And that's why we're taking so much time to walk you through the life of Christ in stereo. This has been Dan and Lee in our Sunday class, and we want to invite you to the roddenreporter.com to find out more about what we're doing. And you can go to oursundayclass.simplesite.com, and you can find out more about how to be on our newsletter list.